the YouTube videos, you just watch them and slow them down and watch her every move. This would be Clarice Connolly.
Hey, how's it going?
That's what you came up with? How's it going?
Thank you for the uncomfortable interjection.
For the awkwardness there, you're welcome. Why don't you tell the nice folks about yourself? You're a coach and leader. You work with women. Who should know about you?
Everyone. So I'm a women's empowerment coach in San Diego, and I work with women worldwide to really support them in feeling seen, being heard, and really being understood as they probably haven't in a very long time, if not ever before, and really supporting them to get themselves back on the top of their priority list as they've generally selflessly poured into so many others, just giving an opportunity for them to feel poured into on a weekly basis and building their dreams as a reality.
How do people find out about you?
Find me online, empoweringwomen.coach.
Empoweringwomen.coach. Well played. That's good. That's good. Sorry about we were talking before the show started about men being inappropriate with you, and I think I just picked up that energy. Are we okay? Are you good?
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's empoweredwomen.coach. I got nervous. You got me a little uncomfortable.
I know what's got you uncomfortable. We're about to interview one of our like we're starstruck is what's
I know.
happening.
I'm like
we're both like, I can't wait for the show with Dad Millman.
What do I do?
Yeah.
How do I do this?
So we've got a few other things to say before we get started, but you have arrived on an excellent day to listen to this here podcast, folks. We've got an extraordinary guest today. We're going to spend the entire hour with the amazing, the international best-selling, the life-altering, the former world gymnast coach, martial arts teacher, and college professor, and that's not even what he's known for, Dan Millman. How excited are you?
I can't even contain myself.
You really can't.
I don't know how well I'm going to do through this. I'm just so excited.
You're just going to scream and run out of the room. What we want to say, of course, is that first and foremost, today is August 30th, and we're sort of just in the in-between landfalls of Hurricane Harvey. We want to send out our love and our support and our kind and healing thoughts to the communities of Texas and Louisiana where that are most impacted. You know, like many hurricanes, the damage won't be known for weeks to come, and there are thousands and tens of thousands of people displaced, I should say, out of their homes and their regular lives. So we send our love, and if you want to send a donation, there should be a donation button on our website today, and or you can, reach out to the many fine charities. Please check out Charity Navigator so that you know that your money is going to people where they need it and not to, fees and administration. Anything that you want to say about that, or is that complete for you?
I'm, as an empath, my heart just hurts.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to all the millions or the tens of thousands of people that are going to help down there. I love the Cajun Navy, people towing their fishing boats to go help people.
I saw that. It's so beautiful.
Right.
Talk about community.
Human beings. You got to love them. Also, we've got some acknowledgments to give out. We want to let you know that I just came back from the ICF Converge, the annual, well, it's not annual, it's going to be like every few years, Global Meeting of Coaches, the conference of coaches through the International Coach Federation. We are privileged, proud, and delighted to be a media partner with the International Coach Federation. I think we're in our 4th year of partnership with them. We're delighted to promote the fine work that those people do. We're excited to be a part of it. And, of course, the ICF is the world's largest organization of professionally trained coaches. They've got great people there. We got to meet a lot of them out in Washington, D.C. Can I tell you when not to have a conference, by the way?
During a hurricane?
No, well, that's one for sure. Yeah, no, you make an excellent point. In August in Washington, D.C.
Oh, it's humid, huh? You didn't like that, did you?
It's a swamp.
Yep,
yeah.
I'm from that part. That's awful.
Anyway, the ICF, I digress, is a leading global organization dedicated to advancing the coaching profession. How do they do that?
By setting up high standards.
Yes.
Providing independent certification.
I love that.
And building a network of trained coaching professionals.
That's right. Mm-hmm. The ICF membership elicits instant credibility for those of us that are members, like me. Are you?
Not yet.
Loser. They're also committed to connecting professional coaches with the tools and resources we need to succeed in our careers. And the thing that I love is it's a huge storehouse of research information. Anything you need to prove the ROI of coaching, to prove that coaching works with this group or in this organization or that kind of NGO, all of it's right there. They've done incredible work in amassing a storehouse of research about coaching. Anyway, hopefully you're sold. Go check out ICF. Where do people find the ICF?
You can find them online at coachfederation.org, so coachfederation.org, or on Twitter at ICFHQ.
At. Okay, good. And every quarter or so, we have an ICF representative right here on this show, so you can find out and talk to people like Magda Mook, the executive director, and George Rogers, the assistant executive director, and a bunch of the bigwigs there. It was a good conference. It was an amazing conference. Some parts were horrific, some parts were wonderful, and I'll have more of that sometime when we don't have a major celebrity like Dan Millman here.
I know.
We should also talk about our other sponsor, longtime sponsor for this podcast for all 15 or 16 years that we've been here, Accomplishment Coaching. If you're looking for the world's finest coach training organization, if you're looking for coach training or leadership development training at the highest level, check out Accomplishment Coaching. They have it's a boutique program. It's small groups in person. It's a year-long program. It is not for the faint of heart. It is expensive, arduous, and rigorous. But if you're like me, serious and want training and development at the highest level, if you're somebody who wouldn't just enlist but wants to go to the Navy SEALs, the elite, and you feel that way about your coaching and leadership, check out Accomplishment Coaching. Clarice, let's see if you can come up with the city. So Accomplishment Coaching is in a city near you. Ready? Go.
Chicago.
Yes.
New York City. Washington, D.C.
Our nation's capital needs it.
San Diego. Seattle.
Beautiful.
And Victoria, British Columbia.
Awesome. So if you're near and anywhere near those places or going to visit those places, you can go see Accomplishment Coaching in action for free. Get yourself an invitation. Go and observe the training program in person without any sales pitch. It's just an opportunity to see what coach training at the highest level is like. And as far as I know, nobody else does that. I think it's an awesome idea. Anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, that's it.
You're a woman of few words today.
I'm just trying to contain myself for the entire hour.
Got it. All right. Why don't we let you then? You're his number one fan, his largest fan. Dan's actually been with us before. I think.
Yay!
Pardon me. It was right after. Heck, I'm not gonna. It was either the Four Purposes of Life or the Journeys of Socrates. We got to speak with him once before. He's an extraordinary man. What do you want people to know about him?
He's a former world gymnast.
I already said all that.
Okay.
Stuff. Yeah.
I mean,
Let's talk about the 17 books he's written. You want to talk about that?
17 books published in 29 languages and shared across generations of millions of readers. His classic work, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, which is my all-time favorite book,
Yes.
was adapted into a 2006 film, which I had no idea, and I'm totally going to watch now. So he speaks worldwide to people from all walks of life and welcomes visitors to go on his website to www.peacefulwarrior.com.
We are delighted and honored to welcome back to our microphones Dan Millman. Hello, sir.
Well, hello, Clarice and Christopher. And in response to your earlier starstruck comments, I think my wife would give you a big eye roll.
The beauty of marriage right there.
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, you, sir, and I know that we speak for thousands, not only of coaches and tens of thousands, not only of coaches, but also just human beings. You have awakened people to their own greatness. You've awakened people to a world that sort of surpasses or transcends the daily life. How does it feel at this point in your career to have made such a huge difference in the lives of so many people?
Well, I can't really know the effect of my words. I do know when I go to a new city, I generally make a point to pick up a little litter if I find some on the sidewalk, because I can't know the impact of my words, but I do know when I leave a city it's going to be a little cleaner. So I'm not just being modest here. How can we know how our words impact others? You know, I admire school teachers. We've probably all had one or two teachers we remember over the decades who impacted our life, and they can never know how they've influenced all the people who passed through their doors. And the same with life coaches and various coaches. How do we know what someone's going to pick up on, what we say almost in passing that really touches somebody and makes a real difference for them, gives them a resource they can draw upon later on. So that's what I'll try to do during our conversation today. And that's what I continue to do. It's how I'm wired.
Well, I appreciate your modesty. And more than that, I love the point you made about litter. One of my first mentors, we were very important people walking around town in our suits, and downtown San Diego at the time. And he started doing that as we were walking along. When there was a piece of paper or a piece of trash or an empty bottle, he would pick them up and put them in the trash. And I said, we're guys in suits walking around downtown. What are you doing? He said, making the world a little better place. And I love that you do the same thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, part of the solution.
You say that it's hard for us to know our impact, and I hear that. But you've got some people who love your work, including, now, we should say that you've just released your latest book, The Hidden School, The Return of the Peaceful Warrior, which sort of fills in a little bit of the journey of the Peaceful Warrior. And it is recommended and beloved by none other than people like Don Miguel Ruiz, Quincy Jones, Carolyn Miss, and Tony Robbins. So you got to feel like you're making some sort of an impact when people at the top of their professional game are lauding your work.
I think the satisfaction comes from the fact that over the last at least 3 decades, I've developed a fairly good reputation, I think, for being pretty authentic, sense of integrity. So those people are happy to be associated with me, and they were happy to offer a comment. And yes, it is a nice thing. And I know there are also at the same time many young authors who are struggling. They're writing their first novel or a book they want to share with people, and they feel like they're on the outside, wondering how they're ever going to rise above the noise. Will they have to become social media mavens to get recognized or seen at all? So I'm in a very fortunate position. I was able to get my foot in the door decades ago, and I got very lucky with writing a book that happened to resonate with many people, and other books that followed. So I know I sound humble, but I'm really not that humble, since I heard a quotation by Golda Meir. She said, "Stop acting so humble. You're not that great." Made a certain sense, and people who don't know my work, and some of your listeners aren't familiar with my stuff, I like to explain that I'm not like a motivational teacher. Somebody came up to me after a seminar once and said, "Dan, I feel so inspired." I said, "Don't worry, it'll pass." because it does. Motivation comes and goes, and inspiration rises and falls, and there are things we can rely on that are less fickle, less changing. We can draw upon inner resources. In the same way, we've all done things we weren't motivated to do, like take out the trash or take our kids to school or change a diaper or whatever it is. We can do these things, and we can behave in ways that bring out our best, no matter what we happen to be feeling or thinking, whether our thoughts are positive or negative. So that's kind of a core of what I'm teaching these days.
We should talk about the seminal work, the work that you are, I believe, most known for, which is your 1980 book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I always put "the" in there, but it's not there. Way of the Peaceful Warrior. As an introduction, the subtitle is A Book That Changes Lives, so you clearly had an intention there. Maybe you and Clarice can work out the sort of a bottom line of that book so people can get an idea of where your work starts and where they can start in familiarizing themselves with what you've created.
Sure. To provide a context, in a way, I could say I'm one of the uber coaches, because I began literally as a coach, as a young gymnast, and I was a world champion and so on, and All-American in all the events.
I'm sorry, humble brag says what?
Yeah, exactly. And that's subjective. That's part of my past. So I did accomplish that, and yet it didn't make me happy, except for a little while. And my interests eventually expanded out of the arena of seeking to ways to create more talent for sports and into the larger arena of how can we create more talent for living, facing the actual challenges of everyday life. So I went from being a sports coach to, I suppose, one of the first life coaches before anybody had invented that term, because that was my interest. We live here in daily life, not in the gym all the time. So that's when I began a long search to work with different mentors and have different experiences and trainings, and eventually it led to an approach to living that I referred to as the Peaceful Warrior's Way. Now, Christopher, you had said that you must have had some idea subtitling your book, a book that changes lives, but that's actually not how it happened. When the book first came out, it was subtitled A Basically True Story, which my editor thought was kind of cute. But the bookstores at the time, there was no Amazon, the bookstores didn't know where to shelve it. Is it fiction, nonfiction? What do you mean basically
autobiography?
true?
Right. Where do we put it? Right.
So it died. It didn't get into any stores, and it quickly died and went out of print. And it was only 3.5 years later that an old gentleman named Hal Kramer, a retired publisher, I call him an old gentleman. He was probably a few years younger than I am now. But he discovered the book and said, I'm going back into publishing. And because we were getting so many letters from people saying the same thing over and over. This book changed my life. This book expanded my perspectives. This book changed my life. So that's why my publisher decided to use that subtitle. It wasn't created by me and was reflective of all the mail we were getting. And I've asked people, what do you mean it changed your life? How can a book do that? And I think it was, in a sense, it covered certain fundamental life skills. Now it's become, almost like populist info about living in the present moment, though there's a lot more to say about that than most people do. Certain life skills that can actually help us from the Buddhist tradition, from the Sufi tradition, and many others that can help our lives. So I conveyed what felt important to me through an autobiographical account of my young years as a college gymnast. And this old guy I met in a service station, he wouldn't tell me his real name, but he was a mechanic there, and I started calling him Socrates. He reminded me of the old Greek sage. And that is what the story is about, the first book. And that's why The Hidden School, my latest book, is called Return of the Peaceful Warrior, the subtitle. Now, the paradox are we talking about Socrates or Dan Millman? And that is revealed, of course, in the course of the story.
Socrates, of course, being Plato's teacher, does that make you Plato?
Well, I guess, yeah, you could draw that analogy.
I feel like we have a platonic relationship.
Wow, how nice. How nice.
I don't mean to interrupt. Please, go ahead.
No, not at all. I appreciate those comments. Well, yes, Socrates was an oral teacher. He didn't really write anything down. He was actually a warrior. He was an expert wrestler. He saved the life of Alcibiades in the Peloponnesian War, so he was quite the warrior. Many people don't know that. They know him as an old philosopher, but he had a great deal of integrity, and I didn't know many of these things when I wrote the book. I just knew this old philosopher called Socrates. So he was, in a sense, a peaceful warrior, a high degree of integrity if people have studied his life. And yes, Plato did give words and wrote down records of his teachings, his dialogues, and so on. And I suppose, in a way, you could say I'm doing a similar thing.
I just need to throw out there, in case anybody who's listening that hasn't read Way of the Peaceful Warrior, the book is literally one of those, as a person who really is in personal development books, loves chewing on the newest, the latest, the most popular book to really kind of expand my consciousness. The Way of the Peaceful Warrior was such a playful, easy, light read. It was at the end of a hard day, doing all this tedious work or whatever it might be, it was so nice to just pop into the world of Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And it kind of felt almost like an on-ramp or training wheels to people that, maybe aren't having the conscious conversations or living a conscious life or whatever it may be, right? I love that it's such a light read with such profound wisdom in it.
Yes, and judging from your copy of it, which you brought with you, it's
There's a
dog-eared.
bit-
It's like you've,
it's
you've beaten the
highlighted.
crap out of
There's
the book.
so many markers in here. So what would you say like is like how did it come so easy? Like how was it just so beautifully and eloquently written and yet so profound for you?
From a professional athlete.
Yeah. How would have
world-class
thought?
athlete.
Like
Yeah.
what for you was the switch? Like what provoked or what was the catalyst to getting it like this is important. This needs to be written.
Well, every book, ideally, or any performance, any work of art, I suppose, needs to look easy, graceful, effortless. But there was a great deal of background that went into it in terms of my own search and an easy sense of disillusion. I studied one thing and found that that wasn't really the answer, so I moved on to another thing, another teacher. And eventually I got perspective and asked myself if I could share what were the most important things I'd learned about life. I thought a few college students might like it, but I had no idea that it would be passed through the generations. I don't think it was personally, I don't think it was a literary novel quality of writing. It was my first book. But somehow, any book is made of two things, content and style. And so the style was somewhat reflected my beginner's approach to writing, but the content seemed to touch a chord in people. And I don't really take credit. It was just my own life experience and lessons that I chose to share. I wish I had a formula or a trail of breadcrumbs that others could follow, but I guess we blaze our own trails.
Indeed. But we want to point people who are unfamiliar with the work, or maybe who have, sort of gone away from it for a decade or so, to get back to the way of the peaceful warrior. I know it's not the way of the peaceful warrior, but let's talk about. You and I share a hair color, and I appreciate so much what it takes to come back to something written. Do you know when I think about? I mean, for God's sake, if I had to go back and amend something I'd written in 1980 or sort of prolong it, I think, the only things I was probably writing in 1980 was, love letters to Farrah Fawcett or somebody. And B, it would carry a different tone, it would carry a different weight, it would carry a different voice from today. And yet I pick up The Hidden School, your latest book, The Return of the Peaceful Warrior, and I'm ready for all these sort of, profundities and the wisdom of the sage and the wisdom of the age. And what I get is a book that reads more like Dan Brown than Dan Millman, right? We're on an adventure journey. We go from Hawaii to the Sangre de Cristo Mountains to Kowloon to, we're all over the place, and we're having an adventure, and it's fun, and it's light, and there's people at gunpoint, and there's the hidden treasures. It's an extraordinary tale. What has you go adventure story on us instead of deep and profound?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, the Peaceful Warrior Saga, I've written many nonfiction guidebooks, as you mentioned a few of them, like the Four Purposes of Life. But this is a story. And what's unusual about it is the second and third book in this trilogy take place both within this story, the frame of the first book. They don't follow the first book. So my second book I wrote 10 years later in the series called Sacred Journey of the Peaceful Warrior, takes place in a Hawaiian rainforest, and then The Hidden School. And each of these show a period of time passing and experiences. So I wanted to create an exciting story, a saga that people could follow and drop little seeds that might blossom later as they read through the story. It's a nice way to deliver information and content because we take it in at a visceral level and a heart level. So I wanted to first of all write the adventure that I couldn't share all of this within the first book when I wrote it, when Socrates sends me away to learn the lessons of life experience. So yes, it is a story. I don't know if it's up to Dan Brown standards, but it is across the world. And of course, as you know, there's a device I put into it, a book in the book, a journal that I'm to search for in the desert, and which I don't want to give too much away, but that journal contains some pretty heavy, more advanced teachings. I thought my readers by this time were ready for some more advanced work. So it shows my evolution You know, one of my old agents said, Dan, just have Socrates show up again in your life and just convey some more, fun lessons through.
Right.
Just like you.
There's
just
20
like
more
in your
books
first
there.
book.
Right.
Exactly. Endless. And I just couldn't do that. It wasn't the book I was meant to write. I needed to show the evolution of my character and how I went from a seeker to somebody who was more settled into himself and who became a writer in his. And so I needed to show that transition. What prepared me for the actual the psychological death experience and rebirth and awakening that I experienced or describe in the end of Way of the Peaceful Warrior. So this book fills in the missing piece of the puzzle. And to give your listeners just a sample of some heavy stuff that many people don't think about much. This is from my website.
I'm so sorry. I just want to let you know we're about 20 seconds away from a commercial break. Do you want to give us a teaser and then come back in on this point?
Yes, it has to do with paradox and a business card Socrates once gave me and how it's a key to understanding some of the deeper questions of life.
What a good cliffhanger. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be the longest commercial ever.
True. Well, we thank you, dear listener, for listening. When we come back, more with the amazing, the extraordinary, the delightful, and the personable Dan Millman. You're listening to The Coaching Show right here on WSRadio.com and wherever fine podcasts are available. We want to send you out to get the book. You can find the book and so much more by going to www.peacefulwarrior.com. More with Dan Millman after this.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcCullough.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McCulloughe. ChristopherMcCullough.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
Are you seeking to change your career to something that is both fulfilling and challenging? Do you want to help people reach their full potential and strive to achieve their dreams? Would you like to inspire those around you and help create a better world? If you're serious about a career change or just want to explore the craft of personal coaching, contact Accomplishment Coaching. With locations across the country in Washington, D.C., Seattle, Chicago, New York City, and San Diego, Accomplishment Coaching is the leading institution in personal coaching. Our staff carefully monitors the entire program, live during the training process, and have met the strict standards of ICF International to achieve accreditation. Through a focus on quality instruction rather than endless modules of training, Accomplishment Coaching will guide you from your very first step all the way to becoming one of the finest coaches in the world. Visit AccomplishmentCoaching.com to learn more. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach.
Christopher McCullough is your source for the latest in the world of personal coaching. Whether it be speaking with such luminaries as Deepak Chopra or getting the newest techniques and innovation, the Coaching Show is always on the cutting edge of what's happening now.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Gotham Books presents Marriage Rules by Harriet Lerner. The book Martha Beck calls required reading for anyone hoping to interact successfully with any other human, not just for those in romantic relationships. Get your copy wherever books and ebooks are sold, and visit harrietlerner.com to learn how to change your marriage today.
Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Accomplishment Coaching is proud to present the following fine programming. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach. AccomplishmentCoaching.com.
Welcome back to the Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach Christopher McCullough.
And we're delighted to continue with our in-studio guest host, Clarice Connolly. She's joining us today to interview one of the legends, one of the extraordinary figures in great literature and in personal improvement and in athleticism and in martial arts and in so much more, the great Dan Millman. Clarice, remind people how to get a hold of you if they are so inclined.
Oh, empoweredwomen.coach.
Thank you very much. Empoweredwomen.coach. And, of course, to find out more about Dan, his books, his work, his adventures, go to www.peacefulwarrior.com. Do people still say the www part?
I guess not. I guess it's all...
Peacefulwarrior.com. And we're talking about not only his seminal book from 1980, hard to believe it's been that long, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, a book that literally changes lives, and his latest book, The Hidden School. I think it's number 17 or 18 of books he's written. The Hidden School, subtitled Return of the Peaceful Warrior. Dan, just before the break, you teased us beautifully. You gave us a cliffhanger about paradox. Do you want to pick it up there?
I'd be happy to, and hopefully I'll be able to convey how that actually can help someone's life in a fundamental way. Socrates gave me a business card back in 1965 or 66 when I first met him, and it said on there, paradox, humor, and change. And I can go on about humor and cosmic humor and how that's so important today, not necessarily just telling jokes humor, but the big picture humor that we need to take into life, as if life is a game we play, as if it matters. That kind of lightness. Also, change. As we know, life comes at us in waves of change. We can't control or predict, but we can learn to surf these waves, and that's another of these fundamental life skills, and I teach that in various ways in my different books, The Law of Surrender and so on. But paradox is something many people don't really, they've heard the term, they've maybe even used it, but what paradox means, a paradox is two apparently opposing statements that are both true. And people can say, how can that be? And there are two ways to express that, maybe more, but the book, Charles Dickens' book, A Tale of Two Cities, opens with the famous line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." And he goes on with these pairs of opposites that could be justified. We could make arguments in a debate that this is the best of times or this is the worst of times. We could find evidence for both. There's an old proverb, a Serbian proverb, that says two men looked out of prison bars. One saw mud and the other saw stars. And both mud and stars exist in our lives. We can put our attention wherever we will. We can't deny one exists, but we might want to focus a bit more on the stars, and we have a different experience of life. So that's what a paradox is, two apparently opposing statements. So here's what it leads up to, and how understanding paradox and how it works at different levels of our lives can help us understand the big picture. Does time exist? Yes. Is time an illusion? Yes. Do we have free will? Yeah, sure. Is free will an illusion? Of course. Are we each a separate self? Yes, we are. That's demonstrable. Are we all one? Yes, of course. Does death exist? Sure. Is death an illusion? Absolutely. How can these pairs both be true? And why is that important? Well, in the Hidden School, I present a model, and I think it's a fresh model for understanding. Just like Einstein's theory of relativity, the scientific model, or string theory. These are more scientific models that can be quantitatively expressed. But it's a model for understanding that we exist most of the time, 99% of the time, in conventional reality. Our awareness focuses on conventional life, things we need to do, from the time we get up in the morning to going to sleep at night. We live in a conventional world, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. We need to do well in that world. Most coaches focus on that, how we can conventionally succeed, achieve, and so on.
Right.
But there is another reality spoken of in all religions, in all spiritual practices, why people are interested in spiritual development in the first place, in meditation and some of these other practices, because there is a transcendent element to our lives. It's almost as if the conventional world is down at the foot of a mountain, looking down in the weeds at the details going on there, maybe creatures going about their day. And suddenly we find ourselves transported to the mountaintop. And we see this vast panorama looking around us. Everything looks more beautiful in the distance. And that is what the mountaintop represents, the transcendent, rising above it all, where we really see what life is about and how it's ultimately perfect and okay, whatever is going on. It's good to remember that now and then. You know that spiritual film, I think it was titled The Terminator?
I remember a different movie with that title, yeah.
Maybe so, but there is a scene in that movie where Sarah Connor, when she's first introduced, played by Linda Hamilton, she's a harried, a server, and she's running around, somebody saying, "This is the wrong meal you brought me," and somebody else says, "When am I going to get my coffee? It's getting cold." And meanwhile, this kid drops a scoop of ice cream into the pocket of her apron, and her friend, another server, comes up to her and whispers in her ear, "In 100 years, who's going to care?" And that was, again, it's a great line, but it's also a reminder of the transcendent. There is a bigger picture. In 100 years, our little petty problems aren't really going to matter. When we look at a solar eclipse, many people reported that. They felt small and large at the same time, the wonder of the universe. So many people turn to the cosmos, and they listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson, wonderful man, in terms of his teaching. So they have a cosmic perspective, but there is also a way to look at life where time is an illusion, where free will is an illusion, that everything is just unfolding perfectly, where we are all one in terms of who we truly are at our core, which is pure awareness, shining out through these billions of eyes. There's a place where death is an illusion, because only that which is born can die. And if we are this consciousness, but many people right now will be going, yeah, that's fine, Dan, very interesting cosmology, but what does it have to do with having a better relationship or peak performance or doing well in life and succeeding and so on, what I'm trying to do and working on every day? And here's the thing. What if someone does succeed? What if they do improve in their business and their life? Is that it? They done? Or do they start to wonder, well, yeah, but I'm a human being on planet Earth, and is there something more? And that something more is what I've been fascinated with my entire life. Is there something we're missing fundamentally? And it's expressed in my first book. I call forth again Plato's allegory of the cave, where people are in a dark cave, which they think is reality. And they're staring at shadows dancing on the wall, cast by the firelight. And somebody, just by luck or accident, stumbles out of the cave and looks up and sees this sunlit world of color and bird song, and they're moved. Instead of just running around for a while ecstatic, seeing this different kind of world, they go back into the cave because they're moved to tell other people, who of course think they're crazy. And that's, I'm one of those crazies, and that's why I wanted to introduce some of these big picture elements, because most of the time, of course, we're focused on our relationships, health, financial stability, education, children, and career. But understanding paradox and the two dimensions in which we can live and build a bridge between, it leads to wisdom and ease, reduced stress, and an expanded perspective on the changing currents of everyday life. So it doesn't mean life becomes easy after that, and we never have a bankruptcy or a divorce or whatever. Things happen. But it does mean we face life with a greater resilience and sense of ease and cosmic humor.
It's beautiful. I one of the things I took from the book, I wrote it as a post-it and used it as a bookmark for the next few days, was transcendent possibility. I think a lot of people, we talk about possibility, and it's become so hackneyed for some of us that it's the possibility of Chinese food for dinner or something, right? As opposed to anything that's life-altering or shifts our view or perspective. So I love the phrase transcendent possibility. It reminds me that we need to play the big game. I know you've got some stuff, Clarice. What do you want to get into here?
Oh my God, I don't even know where to start. Yeah, in the book, you mention a lot about dreams, and a lot of things happen in dreams. Can you kind of expand on the importance of dreams and why you emphasize it so much in the book?
Sure. There's a point in people's lives where if they become interested in this bigger picture and exploring possibilities of life, some people explore diet and they experiment with fasting, not eating for a day or two or three. They read a good book on it, or they experiment with meditation or certain kinds of extreme exercise to see what that's like, if they can transcend their limited beliefs and so on. I'm reminded of a favorite quotation by a Japanese psychiatrist named Shoma Morita. He said, when running up a hill, it's okay to give up as many times as you want, as long as your feet keep moving. So that idea of keeping our feet moving through life. So people explore these kinds of things, and other people, they explore possibilities. And Clarice, if you wouldn't mind, I have a very associative capacity, but I want to get back to the topic. Your question again was regarding?
You mentioned a lot of dreams. So what was the importance of dreams?
Okay, that's where I was leading. Back to the path. Some people also explore dreams as a part of their process. Freud or Jung called it the royal road to the unconscious. And we know that we dream every night. We don't always remember the dreams, but dreams may convey some information from our subconscious mind or unconscious that might be useful to us. At least as an oracle, we can interpret them in certain ways, and some therapists do that. There's also a state called lucid dreaming, in which we become aware in the dream that we're dreaming. Normally, when we're in a dream, we're at the affect. If there's a monster in it, we're really terrified. It's a nightmare, and we're running and so on. Or we're having a sexual dream or a funny dream, and it's totally happening to us. But think about that. If we wake up within the dream, we're still dreaming, but we realize we're awake. If the monster's bothering us, we can just go poof and turn it into a flower, or we can just fly over it, because we are now, we have agency within the dream. And so this idea of lucid dreaming, of waking up within the dream, also applies to everyday life, that perhaps there's a state of living where we have lucid waking, where we awaken from this kind of dream of everyday life where we're suffering from our own preconceptions, opinions, beliefs that may or may not serve us, and we awake to a more simple, calm life. We just see things as they are, this idea of authentic life and reality. So that's what I would say about dreams. I do have an active dream life, and in my book sometimes I report something that came up in a dream that was like a sign for me. But that's the most valuable thing I could say right now about this question about dreams, how we can learn to do lucid dreaming. One technique to learn to become lucid in our dreams is at random moments in our day, like even right now, just to ask ourselves, am I dreaming this? Am I dreaming this? And an hour later, am I dreaming this? And just get used to saying that as a habit during the day, every 20 minutes, every hour. And there'll become a time where you're in a dream at night and you'll remember to say, am I dreaming this? And in that moment you'll go, oh my God, I am. This is a dream. And that's one way to become lucid. There are technological ways too. There are glasses that when you do go into REM sleep start flashing, and it reminds you you're dreaming. And there are other ways too. But I'm concerned more about lucid waking and helping people to wake up within this dream that we call everyday life.
It's incredible. There's so many messages to take from the work that you've done. Your body of work by now is substantial. If I remember, 17 books, 29 languages. I'm wondering what is next for you. You're at a stage of your life where you could do anything or nothing. What's attracting you these days? What's got your attention? What's your next developmental stage if you're choosing one? Or are you just kicking back and enjoying what you've created?
Well, I'm in my procrastination phase for kicking back. I'm going to wait a few more years before I just walk down to Washington Square Park here in New York City and feed the birds. But so yeah, it's nice to have an edge somewhere, a goal we're moving toward. I think we're all hardwired goal seekers. I think we're most fulfilled when we're moving toward a meaningful goal. Not going for outcomes, but just going for excellence, moving towards some goal. And my goal, I'm still working on being able to convey what I'd like to in fewer words, to see. That's why I love quotations, because they have a lot of power. They're pithy, short phrases, and I've collected thousands and thousands of quotations. I share them on, for people who follow me on Facebook or Twitter. Basically, most of the time, I'm just sharing quotations, favorite quotes on different topics. Here's an example. One of my favorites is Mark Twain once wrote, "I've had many troubles in my life, most of which never happened."
It's one of my favorites. Correct.
Yeah, and we laugh because it reminds us of our life too, this subjective reality where we have all these troubles we think we have, but if we look around, life's just happening. Birds are singing around us, and we can simplify our life in many ways. So I'm working on expressing myself more clearly in my family as well. That's always the major challenge. Ram Dass once said, "You think you're enlightened? Go home and visit your parents."
Yep. Well, that brings me to a question. I know that Way of the Peaceful Warrior especially really sort of opened up a lot for men, at least over the past 35 years or more, because it gave us a place to own both sides, right? The gentle, sensitive New Age guy and the warrior that wants to go and accomplish and maybe crush the opposition. And yet, if I understand correctly, you're a man whose children have all been baby women.
Yes, I have 3 daughters. I do have actually 2 grown grandsons who are, one's out of college, the other's a senior, and
Wow.
I also have a 4-year-old granddaughter and a 1.5-year-old grandson. So I have 4 grandchildren. But yes, my daughters are all female. I'm certainly, I've learned to be more of a feminist and seen things from women's perspective more, as much as it's possible for me, with a lot of, much more empathy for the challenges that women, young and older, face. My teaching has always been for people, not for men, not for women. I've taught seminars, as you know, and retreats for 30 years, and it struck me. I'm very pleased to say that usually pretty close to 50% of the people are male and 50% female who show up to my seminars, which reflects the balance of that idea of a peaceful warrior, which I should mention for your listeners, really is about all of us, because every one of us is looking to live with a more peaceful heart, less stress and so on. But also there are times we all need, male or female, equally, we need a warrior spirit to face the challenges of daily life.
True. Are you starstruck? What are you up to there?
It's like knowing that we have 5 minutes left, and there's like so many questions. Which one do I
Like,
ask?
which
I'm
one?
Still,
How do we get to
sitting
that?
in that. I really like. What would you say some of the major themes for the Hidden School are that people could really take now, so that they pick it up and take with them forever?
Well, here's a big one, Clarice. I always thought if I were a young man, I might go out on a first date with somebody and say, "Hi, my name's Dan, and I'm going to die, and so are you." now that probably would lead to either a very interesting conversation or a very short date. and the reason I bring that up is because I really address the issue of death. The last I looked, the mortality rate is holding steady at 100%. But to young people, death is just a distant rumor, as it should be. We're here to live our life. And yet, the more we contemplate death, not in a morbid way, but just recognize that the death gives meaning to life, and that life is brief, the more we embrace our life. And I think the one big element, the major lesson I hope readers will carry away from The Hidden School is, and by the way, there's a meditation I go through in the book, and I'm also teaching. I'll be teaching it online within the next few months. I'm devising the course now, but it's a 4-minute meditation on going through the process of dying and all that we let go of. It's a bittersweet experience, but the purpose of it, of going through this meditation, which I do almost daily, is that it gives us a newfound, a reawakened appreciation for the incredibly rare experience to be born a human being on planet Earth, which we take for granted. We can't help but take it for granted. And I'm going to go into this in more depth, of course, in the course, and I do in my various seminars. So most people don't want to, oh, great, go to Dan's seminar and learn a meditation on dying. And
that sounds like a good afternoon.
I'm the opposite. I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm doing it.
Well, there's no better way to reawaken our appreciation for life.
That's good.
And how do we find more about the seminar? Do we just go to peacefulwarrior.com?
Yeah, my events are listed there and so on. And again, I'm working hard to get up this course, get it online. I have a number of online courses that I teach through my website, and it'll be up there within the next month or two.
And we should all do all of them because they're awesome. We've got about 3 minutes. I'm going to give you the last 2 to share with us whatever you'd like to, Mr. Millman. But I got to say, I was taken by when you said right here in New York City, because I think most of us think of you in Hawaii or some pastoral location, far away from humans so that you can commune with the transcendent divine. And instead, you're right there in the heart of the beast in New York City. How do you reconcile one with the other?
Well, it seems, I lived in California, suburb, hiking trail, a block from our house up into the hills, and so on for over 30 years, most of my life really in California. But 3 years ago, we moved to Brooklyn, New York for 4 reasons: 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren. So here we are. What I love about this area, it's crowded, it's littered, it's noisy, and yet the whole world is here. And if you're going to face life, daily life, and the reality of daily life, what better place to do it?
Nothing more real.
It's easy to go off to an ashram or sit in the woods and feel all spiritual, but when you can do it in New York City, you really got something.
Now I get it. Full circle.
Nice. All right. Our last minute and a half, I lied, is all yours, sir. Dan Millman, if you had something to say to 30 to 50,000 listeners, what would you have us know today? What would you have us take with us?
All right. A final reminder: to progress toward your goals and your dreams, choose one of 2 following methods. The first method is find a way to quiet your mind, create empowering beliefs, raise your self-esteem, and practice positive self-talk. To find your focus and affirm your power, to free your emotions and visualize positive outcomes so that you can develop the confidence, to generate the courage, to find the determination, to make the commitment to feel sufficiently motivated to do whatever it is you need to do. Whew.
That was so good.
Or the second one.
Okay.
What I recommend is, or you can just do it. Because life is always going to come to that.
Beautiful. Oh.
That was amazing. As if I didn't love you anymore. I'm done. This is so good.
Now there's going to be no living with her. It's just going to be Afterglow. All right. Dan Millman is the man. The latest book is The Hidden School, Return of the Peaceful Warrior. The original book that must be on your shelf, dog-eared and underlined and highlighted, is Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And also check out all the other ones, including Sacred Journey of the Peaceful Warrior, The Journeys of Socrates, The 4 Purposes of Life, The Life You Were Born to Live, and others. Dan Millman, thanks for being with us. The website is peacefulwarrior.com. And Clarice, that's another edition of the coaching show behind us.
Sure is.
We've got extraordinary guests coming up and also available in the archives, so go check them out. And my dear listener, thank you for being with us. Go check out our sponsor, Accomplishment Coaching, and our media partner, the International Coach Federation. We will talk to you next week.
Join culinary masters and legendary winemakers for one of the largest
got
Epicurean
so nervous.
celebrations, the 14th annual San Diego Bay Wine and Fruit